Nobody saw this coming. Not the bookmakers, not the pundits, not a single person who filled out a bracket before this tournament started. Four-time world champions, the most successful nation in the history of this competition outside of Brazil, walked into Gillette Stadium as overwhelming favorites against a country of 7 million people that had never won a single World Cup knockout match in regulation in its entire history. 90 minutes later, extra time, penalties, and a stadium full of disbelief. Germany is out. Paraguay is through. And what happened in Foxborough on Monday night might be the single greatest upset this tournament produces. So how exactly does a team ranked 41st in the world knock out a side ranked 10th, a side that just dismantled Curaçao 7-1 in their opener? Let's break down exactly how this happened, because every detail of this match matters. Start with the broader picture of how Paraguay even got here, because their road to this round of 32 tie tells you everything about the character of this group. They opened their World Cup with a 4-1 defeat to the United States, an ugly result that had everyone writing them off before the tournament had barely begun. Then came a 1-0 win over Turkey, a result they secured while playing the entire second half with 10 men after a red card. Then a scoreless draw with Australia, just enough to scrape through as the third-place finisher out of Group D. Nobody was talking about Paraguay heading into the knockout rounds. They were the team everybody assumed would be a footnote, the side that snuck through on a technicality and would now face the reality of facing one of football's genuine giants. Germany, meanwhile, arrived having already wrapped up top spot in Group E, a campaign that included that 7-1 demolition of Curaçao in their tournament opener. They'd shown moments of real fluency in attack, with Florian Wirtz, Jamal Musiala, and Kai Havertz all looking like a front line capable of running through anyone in this draw. On paper, this should not have been close. But here's where things get interesting, because Paraguay's coach Gustavo Alfaro built something specific for exactly this kind of occasion. A team that sits deep, stays compact, refuses to be drawn out of position, and waits for the one moment that turns a defensive masterclass into a knockout stage shock. Through the first half at Gillette Stadium, Germany dominated the ball, dominated territory, and looked every bit the side that demolished Curaçao 2 weeks earlier. And then, in the 42nd minute, Paraguay made them pay for every ounce of complacency. Matias Galarza whipped in a cross from the flank, and Julio Enciso rose above his marker to head Paraguay into a lead that nobody anywhere had predicted. Think about the symbolism of that goal for a second. 25% possession for the entire match. Paraguay barely touched the ball compared to Germany, and yet they created just as many genuinely dangerous chances as the four-time champions did, a number that tells you this wasn't a team parking the bus and hoping for a miracle. This was a team executing a precise defensive trap, absorbing pressure on their own terms, and striking with surgical efficiency the moment Germany's structure cracked even slightly. Germany responded the way you'd expect a team of their pedigree to respond. 8 minutes into the second half, Florian Wirtz delivered a cross from the flank, and Kai Havertz rose to glance a header past Paraguay's goalkeeper to level the match at 1 apiece. For a moment, it looked like the story was about to write itself the conventional way, the giant shaking off an early scare and grinding its way to the expected result.
Except Paraguay's goalkeeper had other plans. Orlando Gil, a name absolutely nobody outside of Paraguay knew before this tournament, turned in one of the all-time great goalkeeping performances under pressure, making save after save to keep his side alive as Germany pushed relentlessly for a winner through the remainder of regulation time. The match went to extra time, the first of this entire World Cup to do so, and that's when the chaos really began. In the 102nd minute, Germany thought they had it. Jonathan Tah rose to head home from a Nathaniel Brown corner kick, and Gillette Stadium braced for the celebration that comes with a four-time champion finding a late winner against the heavy underdog. Instead, the video review official intervened. Waldemar Anton was judged to have impeded Gil before the header went in, denying him any chance to make the save, and the goal was wiped off the board entirely. Germany's players stood in disbelief. Paraguay's players somehow found one more wave of belief. When the additional 30 minutes still couldn't separate the two sides, this match did something almost nobody expected. It went to penalties. And this is where the story stops being about tactics and started being about nerve. Kai Havertz, fresh off helping Arsenal and a 22-year wait for an English Premier League title just months earlier, stepped up first for Germany and missed. Mauricio Tchete scored cleanly for Paraguay to put them ahead. Joshua Kimmich leveled things for Germany. Gustavo Gomez responded in kind for Paraguay. Jamal Musiala scored. Galarza matched him. Then, Nick Waltemade missed for Germany, and Antonio Sanabria somehow missed right back for Paraguay, a momentary lifeline that kept the contest alive when it looked over. Nadim Amiri converted to level it again. Fabian Balbuena stepped up for Paraguay and saw his efforts saved by the legendary Manuel Neuer, breathing one more gasp of life into Germany's hopes. And then it came down to Jonathan Tah, the same defender who'd had that header controversially ruled out earlier in extra time. He skied his penalty over the crossbar. Sudden death. Jose Canablese, a player who hadn't even started either of Paraguay's previous two matches in this entire tournament, stepped up and buried the winning kick past one of the greatest goalkeepers of his generation. 4-3 on penalties. Paraguay through. Germany, four-time world champions, finalists as recently as 2014, eliminated in the round of 32 by a nation they'd beaten in their only previous World Cup meeting back in 2002. Let's put the magnitude of this in proper historical context, because this isn't just an upset. This might be the biggest one this tournament has ever produced at the knockout stage. The previous benchmark for stunning German World Cup exits goes back to 1994, when a Hristos Stoichkov led Bulgaria, ranked 29th in the world at the time, knocked the defending champions out in the quarterfinals. That Bulgaria run is still talked about today as one of the great underdog stories in the history of this competition. What Paraguay just did arguably tops it. This was the round of 32, Germany's first knockout match since they actually won the entire tournament back in 2014, and it marks the very first time in World Cup history that Germany have ever lost a penalty shootout. Not once in their entire World Cup history, across multiple tournament wins and multiple deep runs, had Germany ever lost on spot kicks, until Monday night in Foxborough. Kai Havertz didn't try to hide from the disappointment afterward. He admitted his side had very big plans heading into this tournament, and that it was difficult to disappoint everyone again after consecutive group stage exits in the previous two World Cup cycles. That's the brutal part of this story for German football. This wasn't a young, inexperienced squad caught off guard. This was a team with serious ambitions of going all the way, eliminated by a nation that had never won a World Cup knockout match in regulation time in its entire history. For Paraguay, this is something else entirely. This is a country of just 7 million people, sandwiched between continental giants Argentina and Brazil, a nation that's only ever advanced past a single knockout round once before, back in 2010 when they beat Japan on penalties before eventually falling to the tournament's eventual champion in the quarterfinals. Coach Gustavo Alfaro called this the greatest victory of his entire career and praised his squad as 26 legends, and after what just happened in Foxborough, it's genuinely hard to argue with him. So what does this actually mean for the rest of the tournament? Paraguay now advanced to face the winner of France against Sweden in Philadelphia, a matchup that suddenly looks a whole lot more interesting given what this side has just proven they're capable of doing to a heavyweight. They're not happy just to be here. They've shown they can absorb 90 minutes of sustained pressure, hold their defensive shape against world-class attacking talent, and win the moments that actually decide knockout football. That's not luck, that's a blueprint. And for Germany, this is a campaign that will be picked apart for months. A side with genuine individual quality in Wirtz, Musiala, and Havertz, undone not by a lack of talent, but by a team that simply refused to be broken, and by a penalty shootout that exposed nerves nobody expected to crack under that kind of pressure.
This is exactly why this tournament has been impossible to predict from the very first whistle. The biggest underdog story of this entire World Cup didn't come from a debutant nation everyone was already rooting for. It came from a team that lost their opening match 4-1, scraped through on goal difference, and then walked into Gillette Stadium against four-time world champions and simply refused to lose. What do you think? Is this officially the greatest upset in World Cup history, surpassing even Bulgaria's run against Germany back in 1994? Can Paraguay actually keep this run going against France or Sweden in the next round? And which other so-called heavyweight do you think is most at risk of suffering the exact same fate before this tournament is over? Let me know in the comments. And if this story shocked you as much as it shocked everyone inside that stadium, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more.